after we had our initial training. Oh. All right. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now we have our first public comment section of the meeting, and we have a new microphone as well as the lectern there. So if you'd like to come up for public comment, please do so. Come up and state your name and yes, absolutely. Yes, come on up. Well, you can, if you got a loud enough voice, you can go from where you are, I think.
My name is Danny Ford, and I'm stand that the volunteer of the year award is being studied, and that names have been offered up for that, and I'd like to give some support to Carol Straw, who many of you know and has done well a lot over the years, so it's just an underscoring, and there are the sponsors, I guess, are Andy Lambert and Doug from the Nation Center, the teacher, so that's it.
Other public comment tonight? Yes, Patrick.
Okay, I'll be as fast as I can. I'm going to talk about something that's commonly called an overdetermined decision. And that's when there are several concurrent reasons for making the same decision, maybe overlapping or just pointing in the same direction. And sometimes when that happens, paradoxically, it's actually harder to make the decision because you have too many things to think about, but they all point in the same direction. So it should be easier to make the decision. What am I talking about? I'm talking about canceling the 4.4 mils. It's on this winter's tax bill. It's going to say there, but I'm talking about after this winter's tax bill. And there are three concurrent reasons why we should do that. And they're actually pretty simple. I don't think it's hard to argue with them. I don't think a lot of detailed analysis any further has to be done at this point. I'm going to go through them quickly. Number one, the township has enough money to do it. A lot of you might be surprised to hear that when the auditors did our most recent audit, they said we have $7 million on hand. Isn't that an incredible amount of money? Especially compared to where we were just a few years ago, or where we thought we were. Meanwhile, the remaining amount that we owe on the bond and for the county advances has declined as we continue to pay it. According to some simple analysis that was done last year at about this time, we were down to about 5.1 million in total obligations in the future. We paid $1 million of that in the May of 23 bond repayment. So we should be down to 4.1 million now. We have another repayment coming up in this May, which should bring us down to 3.1. And that's covered by the tax money that's coming in with the winter tax bill. So that's covered. So, 3.1 million ballpark. It's kind of obvious, actually. We don't have to study the exact amount. And 7 million or whatever it is in the bank right now, we have enough money to pay it off. I think we're way above our minimum required fund balance. It's not even close. A second thing is, which also came to light recently, we are required to forward the tap fees that we've collected to the bond. We don't, and then that's agreed by the bond counsel and our legal counsel and everybody. We don't know how much the tap fees are, but we know at least how much they are, right? We know at least $1 million has come in recently, maybe $1.2 million or something like that. And if you go back in time, we might not have perfect records, but probably at least another 500,000 has come in. So that gets us, probably we're up to at least 1.6, 1.7 that we have to by law credit to this bond. And then we're in shouting distance of having the whole thing paid off. So I mean, at least that's enough, actually. Just that 1.5 million is enough to cancel next year's millage because it's already spoken for, at least for a year. Third thing is it's not ethical to continue to collect the 4.4 mils. And I hope I have just a minute left to explain that very clearly. Many of us were around in 2012 when we had to pass the millage that we're paying now. And at that time, we were not able to meet our bond obligations. We were in danger of going bankrupt, at least many people said we were. And it was on that basis, it was always unjust that we should be paying a bond for a water system that only serves 5% of the township. So everybody knew it was unjust, but the only reason why we passed it is because there was no alternative. And it was an emergency and we're about to go bankrupt. That is no longer the case. If we keep collecting this 4.4, it's based on a premise that no longer applies. That's not ethical. It's been suggested that the township needs this money or might need this money, and we have to study it more, because we don't have a capital improvement fund. Which, by the way, I think a capital improvement fund is a good idea. But are we really going to tell the taxpayers that we have to keep taking their money? Even though we have the debt obligation covered, we have to keep taking the money because we need it for a capital improvement fund now. No. That wasn't the premise upon which this thing was voted for, right? Even though it is a good idea. And other things like roads or something, or operations and maintenance, again, this was for the bond debt and is covered. I think that the difficulty in understanding this is that we talk about what does a township need this money for? It's the wrong question. The question is, whose money is it? It's the taxpayers' money. It always was. We already took a lot of the taxpayers' money because we had to, but taking more of the taxpayers' money just doesn't make sense. It's also been suggested sometimes that the township should keep it because we can earn more on the investment value of it as a township. Same problem. Is it really the township's money? My obligation might be $1,000 next year. Is the township saying they should take the $1,000 because the township can invest my $1,000 better than I can? I don't think we want to say that, even though it might be true. But there's a lot of things that people need the money for that might be more important than the township's investment. So if we're going to, and I know there's some argument about whether the township's investing our money the best way or not, and that's a valid argument. Maybe we're not, but the point is, it's really our money. I've been in this for a long time. I had to make the statement because I know my time's up. I started the whole Free Sylvan group based on this whole thing, and so I feel like I had to say something. I don't know if anybody else still cares about this. If I'm the only person who cares about it still, I will be quiet after this. But I plan to send a form of this, a version of this to Sun Times News too, because I think there's a lot of residents who don't know we have $7 million, right? And don't know that we. Thank you, and I'm sorry if I went over my time.
Thank you. Yes, Ruben.
Is there some discussion or something going to happen about replacing different members on the planning commission tonight?
No. Nope. When we get to the agenda portion of that, I'm gonna remove that because I didn't have the conversations I had hoped to have. So. Oh. Well, that wouldn't surprise me, but we can talk afterwards. It'd be great, Ruben. Thank you. All right, other public comment?
I'd like to set up. I don't know if it's all done. Is it all done?
Yeah,
Is it?
it should be all done.
Nice. My name's Dan Russell, Ridge Road. I'm gonna need more than 3. I hope you extend the same grace you extended to Patrick, for me. This was, I just learned that we're not gonna talk about the planning commission thing tonight, but, this was in preparation for that. And also I think the conflict of interest, was in the board packet. So, Both the conflict of interest and the appointing of the planning commission items pertain to a timeline I'm going to share. And all of this information came from emails that were extracted from FOIA. April 6th, 2016, and this is the Finney thing, right? April 6th, 2016, Jim Finney emailed the former zoning administrator Carol Comiskey. In an email, she outlined some of the thoughts on what he intended to do with his family's farm. He concluded his email with, "This is my executive summary for now. By the way, I'm not ready to make this public beyond you and Steve E. My brother and sister are informed only what they need to know. I appreciate your openness to share." For those of you who don't know, Steve E. is Steve Eisman, who was in the Planning Commission member at that time and is still a Planning Commission member today. From 2017 to 2022, Steve Eisman was the vice chair of the Planning Commission, as now secretary of the Planning Commission. Steve Eisman is also a local real estate agent. From the email, Finney made it clear to Knitsky that Steve Eisman was aware of what he wanted to do with his farm. At that time in 2016, early 2017, the master plan was drafted and was approved by the Planning Commission on February 23rd, 2017. It should come as no surprise that the 2017 master plan placed Finney's farm just inside the area for future land use map that would allow it to be rezoned to a higher density development. As a planning commission member, Mr. Eisman was in a key position to weigh in on important conversations to steer the master plan to support Finney's plan to rezone the farm. April 2017, Mr. Eisman submitted multiple land division applications for Finney to sell 2-acre parcels along Mushpock Road. Records show Mr. Eisman was the listing agents for those parcels and sold them for Finney that spring. June 13th, 2018, Finney's engineer Kathy Kenneth emailed Knicksky and copied Eisman and Finney. Kenneth thanked Knicksky for meeting with them and asked Knicksky if they would need to rezone the property to get the number of parcels they wanted. It's again clear from the email that Knicksky was aware of Eisman's connection with Finney, yet she said nothing about the conflict. Over the next months, there were multiple emails between Knicksky, Kenneth, always with Eisman and Finney copied, and sometimes Treasurer Branham, then Clerk Kennedy, and former Supervisor Tom McKernan was also copied. Why would the vice chair of the Planning Commission be copied on preliminary communications about the rezoning applicant? To me, it's clear that Knicksky and at least 3 board members knew Eisman was spearheading the Finney project and were concerned that he was involved in Planning Commission discussions that would have direct impact, nor did they feel compelled to make Eisman recuse himself when there was a clear conflict of interest. As Finney's realtor, Eisman stood to make thousands of dollars in the commissions and the home sales of Finney development. January 14th, 2019, emails show that Knicksky scheduled a meeting with Kenneth, Finney, Eisman, McKernan, Branham, Kennedy, and former Planning Commission Chair Dave Seiss to discuss Finney's rezoning application. This was illegal. As a quorum of board members meeting privately to discuss township business violates the Open Meetings Act. It was also highly unethical for a quorum of board and PC members to meet privately to discuss a rezoning application with the applicant. Email communication between Knicksky and Kenneth continued over the next month. Finney, Eisman, Branham, Kennedy, and McKernan copied. January 24, 2019, at the Planning Commission meeting, Kenneth made a presentation outlining Finney's rezoning request. The minutes show that the entire Planning Commission discussed what Kenneth presented. Eisman was present and did not disclose his clear conflict of interest. February 26, 2019, a resident emailed Kennedy and told her Eisman needed to recuse himself to his conflict of interest. Kennedy confirmed the conflict of interest and stated in an email, Mr. Eisman will recuse himself from not only by abstaining any vote, but also by recusing himself from discussion surrounding the issues. Kennedy neglected to acknowledge that Eisman had already participated in the discussion at the prior January 24 meeting when the Planning Commission had discussed Finney's rezoning application and never disclosed his conflict of interest. February 28, 2019, Finney's rezoning application was presented to the Planning Commission for a vote. As a lot of you are aware, many residents showed up to that meeting and spoke against the rezoning. It was tabled for 4 months as the Planning Commission said it needed to gather more information. In those months, many more residents came around the township and attended the Planning Commission meetings and spoke out against the rezoning. April 19th, 2019, Knicksky sent an email to Finney, Kenneth, and copied Eisman, Seiss, and 5 members of the township board and stated, I believe we have good news on how to move the rezoning forward. Township staff, as well as a couple of elected officials, had a phone conversation with a consulting municipal attorney today. The rezoning stalemate was discussed and the attorney suggested the PC and board consider a conditional rezoning, copying Eisman's sites and entire township board. Stop for a moment and think about what was going on. The planning commission had not even voted on the Finney rezoning application, and Kniske was trying to work a deal behind closed doors to get the rezoning passed. It's appallingly unethical. May 8th, 2019, Kniske scheduled yet another private meeting to discuss Finney zoning application. At this meeting, she invited Attorney Rob Thal, Branham, Kennedy, McKernan, Keenan, Finney, and Finney's attorney. Again, illegal, and unethical. June 27, 2019, Planning Commission voted 5-1 against Finney's rezoning application, with sites voting for it and Eisman recusing himself. July 30th, 2019, the Board of Trustees voted to deny Finney's rezoning 3-2, with Branham and McKernan voting for it. I bring this up now to present the facts and outline what happened with the Finney rezoning. It's clear from the emails and staff, it's clear from the emails that staff and some board members knew about Eisman's conflict of interest and did nothing. It's also clear from emails that there were illegal meetings set up by Kniske during the process. Several members of the public asked for Eisman to be removed from the Planning Commission, and the board denied it. After reading these emails, I now understand that some staff and board members were complicit in hiding Eisman's conflict of interest and participated in efforts to try to strike a deal behind closed doors. Eisman should not sit on the Planning Commission. He recused himself only after public demanded it and had already participated in Planning Commission discussion directly pertaining to the Finney rezoning prior to his recusal. We should be able to expect our elected and appointed officials to act ethically, legally, and professionally. After sitting in on many township meetings over the past 5 years, it's clear that some of them are not concerned with meeting that standard. Thank you, and thank you for the extended time.
Thank you. All right, next, yes, Scott.
Take the liberty.
Oh, nice. It's in the camera shot. I like that. Good job. Thank you.
And maybe an identical clock on this side, not because of what just happened. It has a 3-minute timer that goes down to.
That's what this is going to be, but we have to have an app apparently on our phones to make that work, but that's the idea.
I was just saying matching. So I hope that 30 seconds doesn't count on my time.
We're not keeping.
I don't want the state police at my house again. I was going to talk about something else, but I saw the agenda regarding planning. And I would really like to recommend Dan for any opening at the last year's meeting. He had overwhelming support for any new opening that comes on board, and I call upon the board to really see that he gets put in. I'm more concerned that the 3 people that have not been renamed have been not renamed for a year. And I say kind of really in a way, shame on the whole board for not calling it out that it needed to be, because, you know, maybe their votes actually wouldn't count if they had not been reappointed, but more so because we've got good people waiting if we're not going to reappoint people that maybe have served their day or need to be replaced or whatever. And so I'm really kind of saddened by that 3 people did not get renamed for a year. And now I hope you also know, because their terms are 3 years, they're renamed now. They only get renamed for 2 years now because you can't have everybody retiring. What else was I going to say about that? God, I'm losing my train of thought, which goes with my age. I'm losing my mind, really. Maybe I'll recall my time here in a minute. Okay, because I had another serious, very serious thought, but I can't remember what it is. So if once I sit down, I remember, it's real quick, I'll come back up.
Is that okay with the board? I mean, is that
Considering,
considerate? Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment tonight? Yes, Kevin.
Also appreciate this setup. I think it's very helpful for those not here and those here. And I would encourage Patrick to continue pursuing that issue. I don't think you're alone on that, Patrick. Any decrease in taxes that we need to pay our mills, I don't think you get much opposition to that if the money's not necessary. So now I'll start my timer. I want to come back to the conflict of interest issue. I brought it up during the second public comment last time after the board discussed it and I saw what was evolving. I wanted to review 3 examples of conflict. I'm not going to touch on the Finney because Dan just did a tremendous job, a deep historical dive. But I'm going to repeat some things because for 2 reasons. One, getting the history, refreshing that history of what has happened so we don't keep repeating the same mistakes is critical. And 2, we never have the same crowd here meeting to meeting. So it's helpful to repeat and let people hear and get caught up on what's going on. So the Finney issue, thank you for reviewing that, Dan. Fantastic. In 2021 and 2022, a board member did not recuse themselves from 2 separate votes regarding 2 different development proposals to rezone agricultural land owned by a family member on Pierce Road. That's another one we had to deal with. Board member did not recuse themselves. In 2023, a board member appropriately recused themselves from a vote to rezone a parcel of land owned by their business partner who is also a developer of the parcel, an appropriate recusal. My point is the board is going to talk about the ethic amendment that's being considered tonight on conflict of interest. You have to have that in a policy in an organization like this because it's going to be one of the most common situations of conflict of ethics that the board faces. The Michigan State University Planning Extension Office defines COI as a conflict of interest means a situation where one is making a decision in their government office capacity, which is also impacting one's finances, relatives, family, employer, employees, or business partner. 3, proximity. So you can't vote on a parcel that's next door to you, across the street from you. And it's not that you would make a wrong decision, it's the potential conflict. This has come up a couple times in these meetings where I don't think that some of the issues around conflict of interest are like well appreciated. There's really no difference between potential conflict of interest and conflict. You never know the person who has a potential conflict if they're acting in a biased way or not, right? I don't know if a person is going to vote in a biased way. They may really love their family member. They may really dislike their family member. They may not care about the parcel across the street, or they may want it to go one way or the other. I don't know that, so it's a potential. You manage that because it's the perception of everyone else affected that matters most. That's why the vote a person makes when there's a potential conflict of interest doesn't matter either, because you're affecting everybody's perception of what's going on, ethically or not. So with all of that considered, I would strongly urge the board to vote in favor of adding the ethics language. And also you may consider, once we get that added, consider further defining what is a family member. A lot of folks would say father, mother, sister, brother, or the spouses involved there. And then the other item is partner. Considered further defining partner. Is it business partner, domestic partner? What partner are we talking about in the amended or the proposed added language? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, Scott.
Patrick, steady yourself.
I agree with Patrick. We should pay off that debt, but only after we have a CPI in place. I don't think you understand what that does for us, because we could have a pile of money now, but until you look and see what the sewer needs are, what the water tower needs are, paving of the building, the the painting of the building, possible recarpeting. None of this has been touched for 25 years. I don't think you fully understand what that shopping list is going to be. If we deplete all those funds and then have to go hat in hand to the public again, asking for yet another millage for expenses, we are going to get hit between the eyes. Plus, I would ask you not to put anything into the paper until those numbers have been all fully verified by the board. Because otherwise you could be really creating a problem for the township, answering to maybe a rumor that we have 7 million, maybe a rumor that we only owe 3 million. I'd like to see the board get somebody to do that, to put all those numbers together, to see exactly where we are and get that capital improvement plan in place so that we know exactly what our debt's going to be for the next 5-10 years. It was recommended 5-6 years ago by a company that we hired and paid good money. And that was one of their top recommendations, is to implement a capital improvement plan. And it is yet to be implemented or discussed, including a Parks and Recreation Board too.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Sandy, you coming up or?
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sandy Egler. I have spent my career as a governmental accountant. A little bit of an expert in this particular topic that you're discussing tonight. First of all, governments, even this one, has multiple funds, multiple resources, revenue resources. There are very strict laws in play of which funds you can use for what activities. Your general township taxes can be used for anything they vote on. Water revenue can only be used in water. Sewer revenue can only be used in sewer. Any other type of special millage can only be used for the purpose for which it was voted in for. So money that they're billing us for the bond payment can only be used for the bond payment. The tap fee monies, has already been very clearly laid out, can only be used until the bond money is, until the bonds are retired. Then it can be used for capital improvements or whatever. They could, if they wanted, if they had extra general fund money, take that to pay down the bond, to pay off the bonds, but they cannot take the bond money to set up a capital improvement plan. Can't do it. Because otherwise, they would be in a world of hurt. Absolutely. Water funds can. But not the bond money. And not the tap money until those bonds are paid off. Any other user fees can absolutely be used for any purpose within those funds. So you can't just look at the township and say, they've got $7 million, I want to pay it off. Trust me, Patrick, I want this to go away as much as every other taxpayer in this township wants it to go away. But I also agree, and I want this board to either do it themselves, if they don't have the expertise, get their auditors, lay it out. This is how much money they have. This is how much the bond payments are. This is what we can do. And that should absolutely be part of this next audit go around this spring. And put everybody's mind at ease as to what they can and cannot do. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Other public comment tonight? Other public comment? All right. Then we'll be moving on with the agenda, just like make sure you miss any hands. Tonight we have, Bill O'Reilly and Jennifer, his, assistant, director. Oh my goodness. Okay, the assistant director. Here tonight to talk to us about the senior center.
I'm sure you can hear me from there, but I don't want to turn my back on the crowd, and I promise I'll be brief about this. Bill O'Reilly, I'm the executive director at the Chelsea Senior Center, which of course includes this area as well. We've been around for, there's a mistake there, an update needed. It says nearly 60 years, over 60 years. In my office, we have a handwritten list of membership that goes on several pages from 1966. And in fact, one of the members listed there, their grandson is a retired person who's a treasurer on our board. So it shows how long we've been around. We have 1,200 members from out the area. I frankly was surprised myself about a year ago when we determined this. We have members from 50 different communities. We can document that. And of course, right here in Sylvan, that's one of them. And in fact, next to the city of Chelsea, we have more members from Sylvan Township than anywhere else. Our Meals on Wheels program, between that, our Ease the Day program and other services we offer, in addition to our members, we're touching 1,400 seniors per year with our services and activities. The senior population in this area, if you didn't know, 30% or more is 65 and older. That's double the double the federal and the county average. So this area is a hotbed of seniors, and it's not going to change. I'm among them. We're just going to keep getting older. We continue to provide over 250 programs and activities a month. And I should say I'm jumping a couple of lines. Among those activities, we have a number of great volunteers, and Andy Ford is one of them. He'll be in there, I assume, tomorrow morning with the tech folks. Every Wednesday morning, we offer free tech support to any senior in the area or anybody in the area to come on in, and Andy and others will sit down and help you with your problems. That's just one of the many programs and services we offer. We have, as indicated, over 200 volunteers helping us out to make it all happen. Jennifer is key to that, of course, as well. She's our assistant director, and she helps pull all those things together. This is also, 2023 was the 10th anniversary of our managing the local Meals on Wheels, which of course covers Sylvan Township. During that time, we have prepared and delivered over 253,000 meals. The little trays those are put in, if you put them all together, that would stretch 33.5 miles that we've done. And again, a big part of that is the volunteers, but also our staff is integral to that. Last year, we introduced our Ease the Day program. It's a program we offer a couple days a week. Many of you are familiar, either your family or friends, where you've got someone who has gotten on in years and they're having memory or physical issues. And if a loved one, a spouse or an adult child, has become their full-time caregiver, the idea of the Ease the Day program is to provide respite care for that caregiver so they can step away, go shopping, get a nap, whatever they want to do. We just started that in late April, and we've already provided over 2,000 hours of respite care for those valued caregivers. So looking ahead this year, we've just introduced, last week, we started one new employee, and just yesterday, we started another new positions, a volunteer and service coordinator, and also outreach and connection. So we're reaching out to the community and doing everything we can for our members. And we're going to be expanding that Ease the Day program to a third day later this month. And also this year will mark our 20th year at our current location, the old Chelsea High School at 512 Washington Street. So the reason I'm here, first and foremost, to thank you for your support over many, many years. It's much appreciated and helps keep the door open and keep the activities coming. Our budget for the upcoming year, our operating income for this past year was $581,000. Our projected operating income for 2024 is $664,000. If you take our 1,200 members and divide that into those numbers for 2024, we'll be looking at spending about $553 per member Or if you include those 1,400 people we serve, that's about $474. Currently, as I said, Sylvan Township has the most number of members at the Chelsea Senior Center other than the city of Chelsea. That is 15% of our membership, which is the city of Chelsea is about 1/3 of our membership. So if you, and by the way, the numbers have grown. Just a year, less than a year ago, we were at 157 members from Sylvan. So at a $553 a member, that works out to about $100,000 could conceivably be used for Sylvan Township residents that were for the services and activities we're providing. Last year, as in previous years, the township very nicely gave us $2,500. That's certainly very welcome and appreciated, but I would ask respectfully that you consider upping that. For example, nearby Sharon Township, which has a fraction of the membership that Sylvan does, they also contribute $2,500. The city of Chelsea, which said is a little more than twice this amount of membership that Sylvan has, gives us $45,000 a year. We're certainly not looking for those numbers, but we would ask that you consider perhaps $5,000 or more if possible in the budget this year. We know you're trying to balance things all the time, but would really appreciate your consideration in that. And with that, I'll wrap things up and answer any questions anybody may have.
Are you a
Yes.
501(c)(3)?
Yes, we absolutely are. And I appreciate you asking that. We are completely a nonprofit. We have been since, well, I think 1980s. And no more than 10% of our funding comes from any one source. So we are not, we have to get our money from multiple sources. And as I said, no more than 10% of our income comes from any one source. So we need it wherever we can get it, including Sylvan. It's most appreciated and welcome.
Well, very good. Well, it's good timing. We'll be talking about budget here very soon, so we.
That's why we're here.
I figured.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Here on the front page here, under these staff and board member changes, am I outing you?
Yes, no, you're not outing it. I've been very pleased to lead the senior center for almost 5 years now, but I'm getting up there myself. And so I will be retiring at the end of June, so I'll be around for more than 6 months yet. We'll see what happens next in terms of the next person, but I assure you we'll be in very good hands regardless of who's leading it. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be staying right put in my house, right in downtown Chelsea. And I'm looking forward to actually becoming an active member, playing pickleball or wood carving or multiple other things. And you do have in front of you our latest newsletter, which is our greatest advertising tool. It tells you more about the many things that we offer.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is the consent agenda, which contains minutes, bills, correspondence, reports. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Does anyone have anything they'd like to pull out?
So move.
Kurt, second.
All right, thank you. Motion from Sandy, support from Kurt, to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Then we'll move on to the agenda. Approval of the agenda. I would like to remove a couple items, and one being the planning commission item. I have the conversations I had hoped to have. Also, the Cook and White boiler inspection, Susan said they called today and they already did that. That they had on record that they already had done that, and so they think it was just a solicitation, so we should be up to date. So Susan said we could remove that. And then if possible, I would like to move some things around, because I know there's a couple of people here tonight who could maybe get going if their item is, so if I could reorder, I'd like to make green burials. Then move down to the items from Scott Pacheco, which is recommendation from zoning board of appeals and fee changes. And from there, it's okay with me if they're in the existing order. Culverts, Just so that, Mr.
But
Dahl is here to
Fee
speak
schedule
towards
changes
the,
may be good to-
yes.
Scott Pacheco. Oh, you do
Yes,
both of them.
yep,
Okay, I'm
fee
sorry. I was
schedule
writing. I
and
didn't hear it.
the-
I apologize.
Yep, no, that's okay. The two items that are Scott's and Larry's, if we could move those up to the top.
Okay.
And then we're gonna strike the recommendation and
Okay.
strike the boiler. That's what I would like to propose.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other?
I would like to add to the agenda, approval of amended policy admin 165 security cameras.
That's right. Anybody else have any other additions, subtractions? All right. All in favor of the agenda as or I'm sorry,
I'll
need a
move.
motion.
I'll move to
I'll
approve
second.
regular agenda as amended.
Thank you, Kurt.
I'll second it.
Support from Amanda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, so the first item under unfinished business is Citizen of the Year. And traditionally, when we do this, when we have multiple nominees, to retain confidentiality, we indicate to the board members the multiple people as candidate A, candidate B, candidate C. And each board member should have the documents in front of them. Amanda got them ready, marked one as candidate A and one as candidate B. So then when we're taking votes, we will use those terms when voting. So we have the two nominations.
I would.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
absolutely. So-
Candidate B, I was incredibly impressed with the list of activities this candidate has been involved in. Wow. Wow. Clearly has spent many, many years, in many different parts of our community, helping different organizations and community members. Very impressed.
All right, so are there any other comments or should we just go to a vote or?
I will move that we go ahead and vote.
All right. Let's do that. So then. Would you like to, it's your normally, I mean, I guess you'll just say candidate A, candidate B, and then take the. Yeah,
Well, so we can go through and then each could say which
candidate A,
yeah.
candidate B, right?
Okay. Nimke, candidate B. Kennedy,
Candidate B,
Schultze,
Candidate B,
Kosak,
Candidate B.
and Branham.
all right.
We all agreed on something.
Hey, look at that.
So do you wanna
It's a
make
red
that
letter
motion?
day. Yes, so I'll make the motion that the board approve candidate B as Citizen of the Year.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right. So then traditionally, the month after the board votes, we will have an award here and we will bestow the award at the next meeting. I think traditionally it's more December, January. We're a little behind. So in February, we should be able to do that and honor that person. All right, that's the only unfinished business. So then we moved green burials up to the first item on the agenda, and Mr. Dahl, our cemetery sexton, is here. I don't know if you want to talk at all about it or if you're. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Larry Dahl and I serve as sexton for Maple Grove Cemetery, Sylvan Township. And what the sexton does is look after the cemetery in the way of mostly the paperwork part of things, selling lots, meeting with people when they want to purchase a lot, answering questions for people that already own lots. You know, do I have a lot? Do I not have a lot? You know, is there room for somebody that still in my lot? That sort of thing. So we've had inquiries about green burials. And green burial, simply defined, is a burial without an outer burial container, a vault, and without embalming using toxic chemicals. Caskets must be of natural material, wood, preferably from the Great Lakes Basin, and are considered as pioneer species like poplar, aspen, basswood, and pine. Pioneer species are those that thrive very quickly. For instance, if you had a fire or a clear-cut area, these would be the species that come up first. They kind of grow fast. You might see some little oaks here and there coming up. They're not pioneer species. Later on, they'll be the big trees and the pioneer species won't be around as much, but they're good, fast-growing, and generally softer woods. So other receptacles, such as shrouds, may be used as long as the material is biodegradable, such as cotton or wood, or cotton or wool. Okay. So we've had some requests for a green burial, and the state of Michigan does not stipulate. In fact, they specifically leave it open that a vault is not required in the burial at any cemetery in the state of Michigan. However, they go on in that same ruling to say that cemeteries may stipulate in their own rules and policies that a vault is required. Okay, so it is currently under policy AD, and what is it called?
Yeah.
60.
Yeah. Lost that there. Right. Yep, ADM 60. It is currently defined as needing a burial vault. And so what I'm proposing is that we change that to allow that a vault may be used or a green burial could be used with those conditions that I basically just read. So that's pretty much it. Anybody have any questions?
My question was, is that illegal? But I see you've got it right here. In fact,
Yes.
they leave it open and say, you know, you're not
Absolutely.
required to use a vault.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're becoming popular.
Yeah. And I know a lot of that old section of that cemetery, when I was sexton, when I was clerk, those were buried in pine boxes. And so I remember one time a guy said, I can come out here with a prod, but it doesn't mean there's not a body there if it goes right through, because, so that's.
Yeah,
and I
green
agree.
burial is kind of going back to the way it used to be done, like, although embalming has been done for a long, long time. True green burial, and that is one thing that we definitely need to specify, that is, with green burial, you don't use embalming fluid. That way you're not leaching any of those chemicals into the ground. Okay,
Interesting.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I definitely would not see a problem with the green burial. I mean, if someone's not embalmed, you know, not leaching chemicals into the ground, it's not gonna impose on the cemetery in any way, and it looks like where these green burials are, it will be noted in the map. So we can keep track of where they are, which doesn't really matter in some ways.
Probably doesn't.
Right.
I agree, and I appreciate the environmental stewardship that you know, entails.
I will move to where's the exact wording, to change the wording in admin 60, section 7, internment regulations to allow for a green burial option.
Second that.
All right. Motion from Sir Kurt, supported by Rod. Any discussion? Oops. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Motion carries. All right.
I hope he's not waiting to use it.
I hope not. Thank you for bringing that forward. That's exciting. Thank you. All right, then next we moved up the items, zoning administrator Pacheco. Consideration of the zoning recommendation from the zoning board of appeals.
All right, I guess I'll start by introducing myself to the crowd that doesn't know me. I'm Scott Pacheco. The new zoning, planning and zoning administrator for your township. I was here, Scott left back in 2013 when Scott was the supervisor also for a year when I first moved back to Michigan from California, but I have been an urban planner. My first job was in 2000, working on the 2000 census with Jefferson County, Colorado. But 2 years prior to that, I had been an appraiser in municipal government. So I've actually been in municipal government for 25 years. I have worked for counties, townships, cities, villages, so the gamut in 3 different states. So I am also AICP accredited for the planning. And somebody brought up the CIP information that's on Michigan State University. That's very helpful, and I think you guys should look into it. I actually sent myself an email as he was stating that information to send on to you guys because I know we're working on our budgets and the CIP has to be looked at prior to the budget being approved. So, but I have done capital improvement program plans in the past also. So, but today, what I have in front of you, it comes from the December 6th Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, which was my first meeting with this Zoning Board of Appeals. And there were some items on there on that agenda that I had seen had come up multiple times over this year and previous years. And I had watched some of the meetings, and during that review, I noticed some of the things that the Zoning Board of Appeals was doing currently that could be better. So through that process, the zoning and the discussion during that meeting, the Zoning Board of Appeals came up with 2 motions to recommend that the Planning Commission review some of the existing zoning ordinances that are in place so that they could correct problems that are out there that are creating these variance requests. One of them was mechanical equipment in required setbacks. We have many homes where there's currently mechanical equipment that was put into the required setbacks that didn't receive the proper approvals maybe, but they're there. And we haven't been really addressing them currently. When they come in, you address them as structures, so they cannot be placed in the required setbacks and they need to ask for a variance. What the Zoning Board of Appeals recommended was that the Planning Commission look at those requirements and make a recommendation on revising the ordinance to allow these items to encroach into a required setback with regulation. So that process that the Planning Commission would have to go through is review. So they would review other regulations that are out there in your surrounding communities, what other communities do. They would look at what's happening, safety issues, and then they would come up with either say, no, let's keep them out of those required setbacks, or yes, let's allow them in those setbacks with regulation. And that's what the Zoning Board of Appeals recommended that they do. They analyze the regulations that are in place. The reason that I'm here tonight in front of the Township Board is because all that analysis and review and creation of the zoning text amendments has costs associated with it. And the Township Board are the people that determine where township monies and funds should be allocated. So the other motion that they brought forward was in regards to the LR district side yard setbacks. Currently in your low density residential district, your required setbacks are 20 feet. I would say, and that's based on you have a minimum lot width of 150 feet in a low density residential district. About 90% of the existing lots that are in the low density residential district are non-conforming lots based on the lot width. Creating the need for lots of variances because nobody can meet these large setback requirements. What the zoning board of appeals recommended that the planning commission look at is creating an appropriate distance based on the width of the property. So in what that means is it would be a graduated scale based on your width of your existing property. So if you had a 40-foot wide lot, you still wouldn't need to meet the 20-foot setback requirements. There would be a lesser setback. And again, that would be the planning commission that would review what other townships have done that have lake properties and have small properties, and then determine what's best for the community and what creates safety. And again, my background here, I worked for Hamburg Township as their planning and zoning director and their planning consultant. I worked for Norville Township as their planning consultant. I work for Linden Township as their planning consultant and their zoning administrator, and I work here. But I've created a lot of these regulations, so they're very common to have a graduated side yard setback for these types of properties. So I mean, we'll go through the process and we'll have all the public hearing requirements, and they'll be able to analyze what other communities are doing and what best fits this community. So, but again, what I'm here for tonight is to make sure that the township board says, yes, we should move forward with the ZBA's recommendations to allow the planning commission to review these ordinances. I have looked at, because our budget is coming up, and I recently received the current budget with the amounts that are still available for until April 1st of 2000. There is of the zoning administrator's salary, there's still $10,000 available in that fund. I looked at what my last month's costs were $2,221. I don't see any of this work having to go above and beyond what I was here a lot last month, as coming in and trying to make the processes that are currently in place work a little bit smoother and quicker. So I was here a lot, and I don't see having to be here any more than that. And there's plenty of funds in that 10,000, but there's also $11,000 left in your consultant's fees for master plan and ordinance amendments that is out there. So you have lots of funds left until April 1st of this year. And then the new budget will be in place at that point. But what I would hope to do is to get this stuff completed and the funds allocated out of this year's budget so that we can move on to maybe not more important things, but more things in 2024-25 fiscal budget. So that's the first item. If you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer that.
Anybody have any questions? And so we talked a little bit about the existing things that you're, aware of the Rebecca Harvey. We talked about that. So you're going to work with her and see what,
Yeah. So what Kathy is talking about, there is a contract planner with the township that was supposed to be working on lake residential zoning district regulations that were supposed to be complete by November of 2023. I haven't heard from Rebecca since I got here. I will contact Rebecca, and I'll work closely with Rebecca to get these done by April of this year. So
that sounds great. And it sounds like, I think this was the intent to relieve these people from coming to ZBA all the time. So if you're achieving the same ends, but through a different means, I'm all for that.
And there may be some additional items that get on there during our review of this because I already have brought this up with the planning commission the first time, and they did mention that there was this outstanding lake residential thing, and
Yeah.
some of the items that they also wanted to consider were there's a FAR requirement and a lot coverage requirement that are constantly a problem, and they would like to just fix those problems at the same time. So.
Guess I just have a question. I mean, how do you balance? I understand somebody coming to the ZBA and saying, you know, I'm constrained by these things. But really, the ZBA is there to protect the people living either side of it.
Right, correct.
And, you know, if you're talking side setback, you know, I guess I can kind of see that, but you know, how much, if it's just gonna be a free for all now, like, oh, no zoning restrictions whatsoever, do whatever you want on the lake, I'd have a problem with it.
Yeah, so Kirk,
Should be controlled still.
yeah, to answer that's what the review at the planning commission will be. We'll make educated. So currently, obviously, you have the last 10 years of variances that have been approved. So you know what the ZBA is approving currently. So instead of just bringing things to the ZBA so they can approve them, you want to make your codes compliant with what is out there. So you're not getting rid of your side setbacks. What you're doing is, let's say you had a 40-foot wide lot. On a 40-foot wide lot, your setbacks may be appropriate to be 5 foot on one side and 10 foot on the other, allowing a 25-foot wide house. And that's what the ZBA is always going to approve. So instead of just saying your setbacks are 20 feet and you have to come to us and we're going to then approve 5 and 10, you need to change your zoning ordinance, because a variance isn't created to create a zoning ordinance. It's created to allow variances to legal requirements. So if you're going to say, yes, we're going to allow 30% FAR, the zoning board of appeals can't say that. You need to write that in your code. FAR is a very tricky thing to give a variance to, because you have to show that there's a particular hardship or undue hardship or particular difficulty based on the size, shape, or location of your lot that allows you to have more square footage than allowed on the lot. What is that? I mean, you're allowing 1,000 square foot and you're going to say, no, we're going to allow 1,500 square feet. There's no undue hardship or particular difficulty because of the size, shape of your lot. You're just allowing somebody to have a bigger house. So you need to change the code to do that. You can't do that through allowing variances. So that's what this creates. And you look at it on how can we allow an appropriate sized house on an appropriate sized lot. So with the side setbacks, you do on a 40-foot, you might do 5 and 10. On a 50-foot, you do 10 and 10. On a 60, so you allow the same size house on every lot until you get to 80 feet. And then you say 20 foot's appropriate for 80 feet and above, because it's always going to allow that 40-foot wide house.
And the other question I have is, you know, I always say, define the problem first. So in 2023, how many people went to the ZBA and asked for variances? I mean, if it was 1 or 2, then I'd say, is that really a problem that we're trying to fix? But if it was 20, then I'd say, yeah, that's a problem.
It was 10, but the problem comes with your approving variances not based on the standards to approve a variance.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So it was 10.
Yeah.
I would consider that sizable if you're once a month, somebody's in there.
I've been watching that going on, running the Zoom meetings. There's a lot of late.
It gets really hard too when you're approving a variance to allow a generator in the side yard setback, when you could just put it right in front of your house, right next to the lake, in between your house and the lake. I mean, that's where it's allowed. What's giving you what's the undue necessary hardship that you have to put it on the side of your house? See, so you want to correct for that, because again, my background in California is super litigious. People are very wealthy. If your neighbor's really wealthy and doesn't want that there, he's going to sue the city or the township because they approved a variance not on the variance standards. They just approved it because, yeah, it makes sense to put it over here on this side of the house. So what you want to do is clean that up before we turn into that kind of community. Michigan is not litigious, which is great. It's a much better place to work than California. But yeah, so that, and you want to make code that is appropriate for the type of lot.
So you're your example of a generator. Would there be a noise spec on that? That,
Mhm.
you know,
Yep.
because it's okay, put it on the side of the house, but if it's an old Briggs and Stratton.
Yep.
That somebody brought in, I don't want to listen to that all.
So
day.
you're, every code that I've ever seen that allows them to encroach into the setbacks has a standard that says it must meet the required noise regulations, which you already have in your code, but you're just restating it. And actually the new generators are quieter, and they also, you don't see it much here. I saw it a lot in California. They have boxes that you can put around them that are soundproof with ventilation systems and actually smoke stacks for them to make them even quieter. So there are ways around that type of stuff. Most of the codes that I've seen here, says that they have to meet the requirements. So you get the specs when you get it, when you get the project in, you get the spec sheet, and it tells you the dBs that it creates. And then you'll also sometimes, if they put them into side yard setbacks that are required for the primary structure, there's some sort of screening requirement that's required, which also provides an additional noise buffer, not only a visual buffer, but a noise buffer. So, and that screen could either be a lattice type screening or a vegetation type screening. And then there's also usually a minimum still side yard setback so that you can have safety circulating around the homes. Yep. But again, those are all things that the planning commission will review through their analysis of the review of any ordinance that moves forward. And then they'll make a recommendation, and it will come to this body here as the legislative body to make the final determination.
What action, what motion are you looking, what verbiage would you want?
Yeah, I'm just looking for a recommendation to move, that we can move forward based on the costs that would be associated with these items.
Yeah. Well, then I'll make a motion. I'm gonna, just so it's clear, to direct staff to move forward with the ZBA recommendations and present this item to the planning commission at the next available planning commission meeting.
I'll second that. For sure.
Motion by me, supported by Rod. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, thank you. And then the next item is the fee schedule changes.
All right, this item just comes up because I started about a month and a few days ago, and we have one of these projects, and it didn't have a fee associated with it or an application. So we've got the application now, and I'm bringing forward the fee so that the payment of this could take, so the payment of these types of fees, like the 750 proposed for a conceptual development plan for an open space preservation development, and the 900 would pay for administrative costs of those items. So that would be, your planning commission meeting, your any calls that you're going to receive, any documents that you got to create because of these things, any people that come in and want to see the plans, all of those items. And you're trying to create a fee based on a estimate of what an average project would cost just to cover some of those fees that you're going to have. I suggested 750 for the conceptual development plan, which is basically just a 100 mile above the ground view of what could happen in the future. It's not a very sophisticated plan for these. It's more of a, let's bring it to the planning commission and see if they're even going to be on board to move these types of projects forward. And then the 900 plus 30 per dwelling for the final development fee, which is based off of your final site plan review fee, because this would be very similar to that. Both of these will have the asterisk for the escrow, or I think you guys call it a deposit, right? Yeah, deposit amount, and that would cover any costs for the planning review, any costs for the engineering review, any cost of the attorney's review, any of those costs on these projects. So I added those two fees, and then I added a verbiage to the deposit that says billing are sent the deposit amount will be, I don't know what I wrote because I can't, mine's not in red.
Red in ours.
Is yours in red? I wrote something there, but I will say that with this, I have an entire fee schedule proposal to bring forward, which will probably come at the next meeting. I didn't have time to get it on this agenda. I tried to get it on this agenda, and when I was putting the agenda item together, I was like, I can't summarize. I don't have time to summarize this all right now and get it to you. So I was like, I need to get these fees done so that the project that we have currently can move forward with the appropriate fee.
All right, I would like to make a motion to approve the amended fee schedule as proposed in Exhibit A in the board packet.
A second.
Right, motion from Amanda, support from Rod. I have a quick question. So I see you have the asterisk here, but like if it's a fee, it's not our escrow, right? Our trust and aid, the escrow that we use is, if somebody was coming into planning commission, they'd pay 900 for the fee and then they'd put down the 2,500 for escrow.
Yeah, they call it a deposit in your current fee schedule. So I do have that asterisk on both of
So
those.
that would be for both of those?
Yes.
So that doesn't pay for planning commission members, or it's not the same as the site?
That's an escrow amount, which will pay for any of my planning review of it, any of the engineering review, and any of the attorney's fees, anything that you'll get an invoice for. And you'll see,
Cause I'm just, because normally like we have $900, it's the fee, and that pays for a little bit of your time, really not anymore. Planning commission members, maybe the notice that goes in the paper. Then we have the.
yeah, it still pays for a lot of my time because it pays for all my emails to Patrick, because I'm doing that as your zoning administrator, not as your planner.
And we're retaining it, or we're escrowing it and giving it back? Because it sounds to me like it's a fee and we're retaining it to pay for planning commission members when they come forward.
No, the fee is the $750. The escrow is your deposit amount.
And what I'm hearing that may have been different in the past, we were setting that at 2,500 and 10,000, but I know when you and I discussed it, he's proposing it may be more because they're going to talk to the consultants, the engineer, et cetera. And if they determine that the total project is X amount, we will look to actually collect that up front,
Right.
so
Like
that I
on the
don't have
bigger
to go.
projects, we
Right,
do
well, I don't
that.
have to go
Right.
back month after month.
Yeah,
to collect
And
these.
get little tiny.
That's how a deposit works anyway, but you've just been collecting in $2,500 increments and then contacting them monthly to try to get the money back. And it just slows the projects down, especially on large projects, because an engineer, I've just dealt with just a small little project, and it was $7,000. And that was in less than a week that they're trying to get this money. And I'm like, well, you got to stop. Every time you get to $2,000, go home, because we're not sending somebody out there without having the money in the bank. Because you can't do it that way. Because then if something happens and they don't pay, then the citizens of the township have to pay for a developer to do a project.
Do they ever pay the 900 then? If somebody's coming forward to the planning commission for an open space.
Yeah, they pay the 900 when they do the final development plan.
Space for planning commission, that's not an escrow.
That's not an escrow. It's 900 plus $30 per dwelling unit.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm clear and it's clear what's escrow and what's not in there.
Yeah, so when you get the revised
Yeah,
fee schedule, it will be very clear, because we're not going to use the word deposit, and there'll be a legal definition of what an escrow is and how an escrow works
well,
in
this was
the fee
pulled-
schedule.
was pulled from our ordinances, I think, this additional verbiage, it's on the back
Yeah.
page. and just plucked from a,
Yep.
so anyway.
Yep, it will all be revised so that it's super clear. So the asterisks will not be asterisks anymore. Yeah, you have asterisks on some things, but there are multiple reasons that you could require a escrow on anything. I commonly require an escrow on just regular zoning permits if a engineering review is required, and you need to be able to do that in your fee schedule, the way it's set up. So it's what's considered an escrow-based fee schedule. So, and it's so that the citizens of the township aren't covering any private developers to develop,
But I just wanted to.
or
make
private
sure
citizens.
it Wasn't
to
it
develop.
so that they were, that our planning commission was being paid by that person, not by the citizens. So-
Yep.
and I
Some,
really appreciate
like,
that.
even, no matter what, when you have a fee like that, the planning commissioners sometimes are not paid, because at some time, the planning commissioners will continue meetings, multiple meetings. And, they still only paid $900 for the fee. And the planning commission has made the project take 12 meetings, and you're paying your planning commissioner $700 a meeting.
Right.
So, but what you're doing is you're creating an average, and you don't want to say, you're paying your planning commissioner $700. You know that to put it in the papers, another $200. So that's the $900 right there. But there could be more than one project on a hearing. There's reasons not to require the entire amount. And just go line by line and say, you got to pay this much money. You're just trying to create an average so that you can take in enough to cover it through the year.
So the-
All right,
the
very good.
Question, the escrow, we're using that term, is that the trust and agency
Mhm.
account, same thing?
Right.
So you're familiar with trust and agency?
Yep.
And escrow, or that's the same thing?
Deposit, they call it deposit on here.
Okay,
But yes, it will be called an escrow account or a trust and agents, whatever you guys want to call it. It will come with some legal terms on your next iteration of this fee schedule.
All right, well, we got a motion from Amanda, support by Rod. Are there any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks.
I'm gonna go.
We knew you were headed that
Thank you,
way.
and welcome. We're happy you're here. Thank you. Okay. So that was 1, 2, 3. Now we're just gonna go to the top of the
Okay.
agenda and work down.
Okay.
Culvert locations.
Oh.
The Water Resources Office is offering some of their ARPA monies for partial funding of culvert replacements. They are offering to pay 50% of the project. The road commission is offering to pay the other 25%, and the township would pay the other 25. So 50 from Water Resources, 25 from the road commission, 25 for us of the project costs. The road commission identified 3 culverts in Sylvan Township here. And they sent a couple emails. I forwarded those around with the details. And they're not cheap, of course. The culvert at Ivy Road, they're estimating the construction is $138,000. The culvert at Bush Road would be $322,000. And Sibley Road, the construction estimate is $342,000. So that's nearly what, $800,000 dollars in culvert repairs. So we have a little bit of a time constraint. They're wanting to have applications, if we want to pursue this, to them by January 16th. I wrote to Mr. Hui, who sends the emails out, and asked him if they had an opinion on priority. And which one was in terrible shape, and I haven't
Right.
heard back from him, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Seems like the one with the plate that's covering it is probably pretty important.
Where's that?
Clayton Road,
I
Bush
think that was
Road.
Sibley Road or
Yeah, it says Bush Road north of Sibley. Clayton Road.
yeah.
We just replaced that culvert on Bush Road.
That one we did?
No, I don't know if it's that one, but it was a culvert on Bush Road. Cause it failed, do you remember? And it was like had a thing that went off and they had to. Yeah, I remember.
So we are covering 25% of this construction estimate? If
That's
I'm reading this
right.
right, so there'd be 34,000 for Ivy, 80,500 for Bush, 85,500 for Sibley. If I'm doing the math.
What was the middle one? I'm sorry, Bush Road. you said?
80,500.
Okay.
I mean, I think we need to hear from the road commission what they feel is, I mean, this is,
Yeah.
if we can pay 25%, we should take advantage of everything we can. If we can find the money,
Yeah, right.
fix the roads,
right.
fix these areas.
When you break it down like that, that's the amount, cause those amounts seem huge, but 25% of it is,
Right.
a much more doable chunk.
Absolutely.
And so we do have ARPA funds left here at the township as well. You know, we
Right.
have, we had over 300,000 and with the only things we purchased is the technology build out, which I think was 40,
Yep.
around 40,000.
And then the
So
cameras
there's-
went as well. and
Oh.
We were gonna consider the computers.
No, I would, yeah, okay. Okay, well, those are things there too.
Sure.
But even so, that's about 200,000 for all of those.
Right.
So I wish that I had the foresight and had the, road commission be here tonight in some way. Because they do have,
And we need it by January 16th.
they want us to submit applications, yeah, by the
okay.
16th, and that's next Tuesday.
Oh,
Goodness.
Yeah, and it was pretty fast.
and Monday's a holiday.
And so I know Monday's a holiday.
These Wednesday,
Well, I certainly
Thursday.
would be willing to just put together a quick special meeting if we need to, if we, to hear back from them. I mean,
By
I
the
wanted,
end of
I
this
want to
week,
take
like
advantage of it,
Thursday.
yeah.
I know, I
Yeah.
don't
Weekend.
want to miss it, because this
No.
is
Do
a
it too.
huge,
Yeah.
yeah.
I would be willing to
exactly.
prioritize that once but I would love to hear back from them because it's hard to decide unless,
Mhm.
I don't know enough about those roads.
I mean, to me, the plate one is a no-brainer,
Don Sibley,
just to me.
yeah.
but-
Bush Road north of Sibley. Yeah,
Oh, no, that one's on Bush.
yeah, that was the one on Bush Road. It's.
What does Clayton Road
North.
mean?
Is
What's-
that like they've got something? kind of
Steel
holding
plate covering it.
together?
Mhm.
Because there's a washed away or there's a,
Mhm.
okay. All right.
Either it's starting to crush or whatever.
So do they ever provide, the breakdown of the cost estimate? I mean, they say, oh, it's 320,000. Well, what's in that 320,000?
Well, that's a good question. He didn't hear, but if we asked for them, they usually would be able to provide us with.
Yeah, they
what
have
it is.
before.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then, this is saying that the township's gonna pay 75% of the construction cost. And
Oh.
that we, the township, are then gonna go get the ARPA funds.
Well, it did say
Pay for
here that the way that they were working, it was the township paid and then, let's see. Since the township receives the ARPA award, the Washtenaw Community Road Commission will bill the township 75% of construction cost. And the township will submit a request to the Water Resource Commission for 50% of the total construction cost.
So in previous projects, hasn't it been a 50-50 split with the county?
Not all, I mean, well, when we do road work,
Mhm.
sometimes we give them money and then sometimes it's, I think it depends on the road.
Sounds like it's been about a 50-50 split. Now they're saying, well, you have ARPA money, so now we're gonna make it a 75-25 split and you guys go get the ARPA. What if we don't get the ARPA money?
Well, and I think
We're-
that's like so you're putting in a grant application and I hear you. And I would say if we were denied by the Water Resources, then we would just say we can't do that.
Yeah.
Or we
Yeah.
could come together as a board and determine if that's what we want to say, but that
Right.
would be my
And that would be my,
indication
right.
too, because
right.
they're selling.
They're saying, they're
roads is
selling
what
that,
it
right.
Yeah,
is.
they're wanting to fix these. I mean, they have those
Yes.
federal funds. They want to fix. these
They
roads.
want to fix them.
Yeah.
Right, but I wouldn't want to
I'd
be.
like to see the price breakdown because, I'd hate to see them covering all their costs and overheads and everything, and then jacking up the price estimate,
Mm,
you know,
yeah, what it is.
and then
Yeah.
actually making money on, on the project. So you really do need to see what's the cost
What's the
breakdown?
cost?
How much
Yeah.
money is going to you guys and
He was gonna send me, and he sent it late today, like some supporting documents for each of these, and, I haven't opened it, but I have my computer back here. But I mean, for our services tonight, I don't think we're prepared anyway, but I'd be happy to send that around, happy to email him, and if it's not in there, ask for those specific details. And then like you, I'd be willing to come together, for a special meeting on this item alone.
Right. Just to
just
authorize it.
To take advantage of that, if that's what we're going to do.
I would agree with that.
Yep, I would too.
So, okay, so then, I'll make a motion that we table this item
I'll second that.
for more information. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Anything else that you might want to hear from them, let me know and I'll email them
Right.
later tonight or tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. All right, next, so then, the next is the consideration of terrorism insurance coverage. This just came up, we had our insurance renewal with Kevin Decker. And I remembered in the past, the board made a decision on this, so he gave us the information. It's terrorism coverage. It's $226 for the year. And I remember last time we talked about it specifically sort of like in the utilities capacity that we would have things to perhaps think about with the water tower. Yes. I also think I remember from the last time we talked about this, that Mr. Decker said the bar is pretty high to prove terrorism. You know, in order for a payout, I think maybe the FBI has to come out. There's, a lot of things that would need to happen. But this would be $226, for the year.
To prove terrorism versus vandalism. This is terrorism insurance, not vandalism.
Right.
Correct.
And this would cover the township and the water plant?
Yes, because the water treatment plant is on the township's insurance. So that would be, it would cover, yes, our building, the water treatment plant.
Mhm. And we have,
I mean,
So we've
we-
declined it in the past.
Yeah.
I don't believe we've ever
Time.
done that, done this before. So
I think he's obligated.
I think he's obligated and I brought it up. I asked like, hey, didn't we do that one thing one time? So then they sent this, for your consideration. Nuclear events, including but not limited to an exclusion for nuclear events. All right, how did, is there support for that? or-
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely. I mean, why would you not insure something? Because if it's not insured, you're gonna have to pay for all of it. And $226 is nothing. It's hardly anything at all.
For terrorism only.
Right, I understand.
okay.
We're right next to an interstate.
Well, the coverage says it's by certified acts of terrorism, so,
Sure.
you know, what's the definition of that?
Right.
And then it says may be partially reimbursed by the United, so there's so many weasel words in here
Right.
that they're not gonna pay for
Right.
the act of terrorism, that why would you waste even the $220 some dollars?
Yep.
It's $226. That's hardly anything. I am a risk avoidance.
Well, I could go either way. I mean, it's not a lot of money. I see the benefit. I think hear what Kurt's saying, what I had said too. I think the bar is pretty high that to prove it, they're gonna require certain things. But if anything is at risk, I think of something like that, it's our water, our utilities.
Do we need to have
Oh.
somebody make a motion like me?
Mhm. Mhm.
I would like to move that we adopt terrorism insurance for $226 this year from Decker Insurance Agency.
All right, thank you. Motion from Sandy. I'll support that. Good discussion. Any discussion?
Yeah, so is this, are we gonna be voting on this every year? Or is this gonna get rolled into a policy and it'll be automatic and then we'll never see it?
Well, I don't know.
Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, I brought it forward because I remember the board voted on it last time. So I don't think it was last year. I don't know if Amanda remembers
think-
voting on this. It was probably a few years ago.
I would
at
think
this
that
point.
if the rest of our insurance is with this agency, that it would just be rolled into everything else. I mean, why would we decide this year is going to be horrible and we want insurance and the year after that, we don't think anything's going to happen? I don't think so.
Well, and I could ask them because they probably, it's something that we have to annually opt in on, or it
Yeah,
just
that's my
becomes
question.
right, whether it just would roll into that. And yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
Because it's only $226 this year, but after 10 years, it's over $2,500 for something that
You don't even see anymore because it's just,
Right.
rolled up into the invoice.
thrown it away.
Right,
But,
right.
and does the DECA agency doesn't care, cover acts of terrorism or natural acts of
Mhm.
nature? I don't know, they always seem to have words worded in there like that.
They always
Acts of
seem to
nature
have
they
words
do.
in there. Yeah, I think.
Acts of
that's
war.
like- Hopefully not.
But they must not, or
Or
they
like-
wouldn't have included this rider.
Right.
Yeah, it's the terrorism thing, I think specifically. And again, I think it would be like a federal agency that would come and investigate and determine it was terrorism.
Yeah, and I'd
so
like to see
forth,
the
so.
definition of it. I mean, if it's somebody going crazy in the neighborhood, is that different than somebody coming from, across the ocean to specifically target Sylvan Township?
I blame
Yeah.
him.
Specifically targeting municipal water.
Well, and I think it could be just any terrorism. So there's domestic terrorism just as well as there's international. So I think it would just be, again, up to the FBI or whoever would come in to investigate,
Well,
to say.
I mean, this covers the period from, 2012-1, 2023 to 12-1, 2024. So it's clearly a yearly decision.
Yeah.
Even if we haven't decided it, maybe they haven't presented it to us every year.
Right. That's true.
Thinking of the water tower, I'm in favor. It's not that much money.
But I like, you just pointed that out, and I'm sure it's not for a period of,
It's 1 year.
oh, I see, December 23. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
But it's for the past year.
No, well, that's what I thought it was saying for a minute,
No.
but I think it's just December 23 to December 24.
Right.
So it's a December to December, could be January to December, but,
Because my
So-
biggest concern would be if something did happen at the water tower.
right. All right, is there any other discussion? Should we go to vote? All right, there's support from, motion from Sandy, support from me. To include the 225 for terrorism coverage for the year. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, 2 nays,
226, wasn't it?
3, 226. All right, motion carries. Thank you. And then next is the camera system.
It's kind of a moot point now.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, okay.
if we really are going to address it in the agenda item that we added, I think we've come to a
Oh,
consensus.
okay.
Yeah, so I thought, I didn't realize.
We'll
we
just
could have
remove
removed
that item.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thought about it earlier and then I
Yeah,
forgot
we'll
to mention it.
All right, so let me get that with this. And then the
Do I
next,
need to make a motion to remove it, or can we just remove it?
let's make a motion.
I'll
'cause we
make a
didn't
motion,
include it.
since I brought it
appreciate
forward, I'll make
that.
a motion to remove, where are we?
Removal of old security.
Yeah,
camera
removal of
system.
old security system. Thank
I'll
you.
second.
All right, all in favor of the amended agenda? Aye,
Aye.
opposed, say nay. Thank you. All right, so we're skipping that and then we're going down to the alternate for the Chelsea Area Construction Agency. Which was a surprise that I was not the
Yeah.
alternate because
I always thought you were.
I thought I was too. The boards and commissions list that Susan
Mhm.
maintains has me listed as the alternate.
I went back and looked at, these are all the agendas, and I went back because I thought, well, where was that? And I could not find it.
Yeah, I looked through too. I looked where,
Yeah.
I used to be the representative and then it moved to you and we
Right.
moved jobs.
Right.
Me clerk, now you're
Yeah.
clerk, so you took the job. And then I guess it sounds like perhaps Susan assumed or something.
Maybe.
The information didn't flow right. So that I was the alternate.
I remember us going over the list. I just don't remember when.
Well, there was a long list though where you were appointed as CAFA's alternate, but for some reason in that meeting, I was appointed as, the construction agency alternate, but Kathy wasn't. We just missed it. So yeah, I chatted with Kurt and Kurt is happy to step in as my alternate and he'd be good.
I think it was Kathy's alternate.
Yeah.
When you were on the.
Yeah, you might have been. You might have been. I don't know if you went to any of them. That's fine. I'm happy to continue to serve. I have familiarity with the board. I was on before Amanda. So
I would like to make a motion, or I move to appoint trustee Kosak as the alternate for the Chelsea Area Construction Agency Board.
I'll second that. Is there a term on here? How long?
it's our terms, which are through November.
Okay.
It runs with because once we're out of office, you're not on that board anymore. but-
Actually, it's
so-
look on your list. I think it's
Yeah.
a 5-year term.
It is, but also, I mean, these dates for the construction agency. And I guess we can ask from the board, but the 10 years I've been on the board, it's always been a board member on these things. So if a person is not in office anymore, do they continue these?
exactly,
Or do
exactly.
do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
if you're not clerk, do you
Right.
continue
right.
till 2026?
So I wonder if these also need
They-
to be adjusted, the terms.
Exactly. I mean, I'm
Right.
concerned about this entire document at this point, to be honest.
See, Linden doesn't have a board member on on CAFA. They have a rest-
Linden? Oh, right,
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Well, and Wave, I'm on the Wave board and many of the individuals there are not, so I think, I think we
And-
can do it other way. but
And Lima, Craig is not an elected official.
You're correct, that's right. I
we're
forgot
just-
about
And he's
Craig
in
too, yeah.
Kappa.
Yeah, so we.
Uh-huh.
Yep, so there's 2 townships right there that don't have board members on
Right.
CAFA.
Yeah,
I think that would be a good discussion for a supervisors meeting to, why are we having non-elected people on?
Right.
these
Yeah.
Boards
Yeah,
that
like
collect
original.
millages.
right. And there's one coming up this month. so That would be, I can bring something like that up. Yeah, for sure. And maybe, I don't think you have to be a board member, honestly, because a lot of times people have been saying, you should get someone who's interested in transportation. Not that I'm not, but someone who's invested or, has a history with buses to be the representative on the Wave board. Because frankly, we have a lot of work to do here. And then we end up going, and I love Wave, but when I go to the meetings, it's 9:30 to 11. That's the entire morning. And if we're only open 4 mornings, that's a quarter of my work week. Not really, because we all work way more, but I can see the benefit to maybe having some other individuals represent Sylvan on some boards. But I
I
think that's a discussion.
Definitely think we need to have a conversation about it because the person who is there is representing the township. And if they're not an elected official, we have to, there's some steps we have to go through to give them any authority at all to voice an opinion.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point, Sandy.
That's a good point. All right.
No additional comments.
All right, so we have a motion from Amanda supported by Kurt. I'm wondering why the change. I see that Kurt is here. He's our CAFR representative. He is also the alternate on the Water Sewer Authority. And whereas I have alternate positions nowhere.
I didn't realize, I don't look at it as a change. I didn't know what I have actually asked 3 different community members to be my alternate because I did not think I had an alternate.
Well, that's so big. This
And
is
that-
on our share drive even here and Susan has.
I
mean, this
hadn't,
is,
well, I just,
Uh,
I hadn't, for
so,
whatever reason, I guess I hadn't seen that, so I thought I didn't have an alternate. So then when I look back just to see where we are, I saw that I don't have an alternate, so I don't look at it as a change. I just look at it as we don't have an alternate and Kurt and I chatted about it and I think he'd be a good alternate.
okay.
Because it's not a change because we
Well,
don't, because
but
there
it
is
kind
no,
of is,
because there is
because
no
this
alternate.
This is our official document that we go by. If this isn't official anymore, then
Well,
none
I
of these
think-
are, then
well-
is Rod really the alternate for CAFA? If somebody did a deep dive in the minutes, would we find that he wasn't?
But I guess I don't see that as the guiding document. I see our minutes and the motions we make as the
Understood,
guiding
but what I'm
documents.
saying is then maybe we need to reconnoiter all of our representations and maybe mix things up a little bit and change representations around. Because if this document isn't correct, this is our guiding document. This is what we have as the township. This is our official list of planning commission members, ZBA members, alternates, representatives to CAFAs, alternates, representative to CAFAs, alternates, planning commission people. All of this is here. So if we feel like information isn't correct, that concerns me. And I know what you're saying. You didn't find it in the minutes. I mean, mistakes happen, but I just don't understand why we would be making a switch when, since this document has been around, when you and I, when our positions became available and we switched, this has been our document. And so to me, it's clearly not reflected in the minutes, but this is what we're going with. I mean, I thought, so it does feel like it changed to me.
I was not under that understanding, so. I'm
So,
looking to fill that void based on the minutes that I see and the actions we've taken with Kurt.
right.
Choosing choosing him as my alternate.
Hmm. And so Kurt, you're willing to be representative and then alternate, because you're alternate through quite a few things.
Well, because you also
So-
have a number of, I mean, you sit on a number of boards yourself, so I know how busy you are as well.
Right.
So he is an alternate, he's not,
Right.
he's not gonna have the schedule that you have because you have to go.
And the meetings are at 1 o'clock, correct? In the afternoon?
Sometimes.
Right. I think, yeah. When I was on them, we were at 3. It feels like it's always been in the afternoon.
We switched.
So.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Normally, yes.
So. All right, so there's a motion right now from Amanda, support by Kurt, to make Kurt the alternate on the construction agency. Is there any discussion? We'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Nay. All opposed, say nay. Nay.
I didn't vote. I'll say nay.
All right, great. Thank you. Kurt will
I'll
be
just add that,
the alternate.
Rod has been the alternate for CAFA and he's done an outstanding job. He's been there when he, is an alternate. It's not just go there when somebody's not there. Rod attends almost all the CAFA meetings, and it was actually pointed out by the CAFA board that
And I know I don't,
I know they.
as an
appreciate
alternate,
that.
another one that I have.
Well, I was gonna say, I think we're all alternates. I think you're alternate on the Water Sewer Authority, so I don't think that we all practice that, and maybe we should. All right, then next we have amended Sylvan Township ethics and conduct language.
All right, so this was my agenda item. I was just taking some input from some different residents. We received some comments here at the board meeting last meeting. We also had a resident email, I think came in and spoke with you, Kathy,
Mhm.
then emailed me, so I sent that on to the board as well. So who would ask for some conflict of interest verbiage to be added to the recently passed standards of ethics and conduct language. And so I started to look at our policies and I discovered that we already have a conflict of interest policy, admin 76, that was required for any
Mhm.
government who accepted ARPA funds. And I thought, well, goodness, we already have a conflict of interest policy. If we receive ARPA funds, it'd be very easy to modify that, to add that for any, township personnel actions. So I took that direct verbiage, I tweaked it just a little bit because it was talking about specific contracts for the federal government, and then just broadened that to include all official, all township personnel actions. So the verbiage you have is I'd intended, but I don't think Susan included it. Wanted her to include the actual admin 76, so you can see the verbiage is almost verbatim. And I don't remember if that was passed right when we decided we would accept ARPA funds.
Yeah, right. I remember we had to, there was some policies we had to approve in order to be
Yes.
eligible for the ARPA funds. So
So I-
this is nearly verbatim, you
Yes.
say?
It's almost as verbatim as I could make it so that it didn't, so it made sense because the one in admin 76 talks about specifically accepting federal contracts. And so I sent this to Thal's office, said, please take a look at this, and I think I sent the admin 76 and said, I'm taking this verbiage directly from this other conflict of interest policy. I've modified it slightly so it makes sense within the context of an ethics and, policy, and sent back that it looked okay.
We
The
supposed
verbiage
to
looked-
include the supervisor on emails when we have emails with the attorney?
Yeah,
Right.
sure. Oh, we can make sure, yeah, we'll do that in the future. So I would like a motion to approve the updates to the Sylvan Township Standards of Ethics and Conduct as presented in the attached revised draft dated 1/9/2024. The revisions add language regarding conflict of interest, which you see in the marked up copy.
Are you moving or you would like someone to?
No, I'm sorry. I will move to approve. Thank you, Kurt. I will move to approve the updates to the Sylvan Township Standards of Ethic and Conduct language as presented in the attached revised draft dated 1/9/2024. Revisions add language regarding conflicts of interest.
I'll second that.
Wonderful, thank you. Motion from Amanda, support from Kurt. Is there any discussion? All right, makes it easy when it's already there in a different policy and you can just,
I
Pluck
was
it.
like, whoa, we already have
and
this.
I'm sure the attorney, he approved it when we did it the first time with
Right.
us, so.
I think it was something from the federal government. You had taken a policy
Right,
that.
yeah, yeah, we were provided. All right, then we will vote. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed, say nay. All right, thank you. Next, assistance in developing high-level review of the water sewer rates.
Okay, so this one, I have to apologize. I asked this company, we met at the Township Association. I'm not familiar with them, but they did a presentation there, Manor
Okay,
Costs Are Rising, or
yeah,
Arian, or I call them Costs Are Rising.
that's not a good business name.
But what I've asked them to do is to give us a proposal on going back some length of time and figuring out how much money have we collected in tap fees for either water or sewer over the last, I'm thinking 5 years, to see how much should we be sending to the county. I know I've had some discussions with Rod and Trenda saying, hey, we have all that information. We don't need to hire a consultant to come in to then give them that information to hand it to us. But so anyways, that's what I'm working on.
Okay,
Is getting a proposal from them to come in and do, an audit or of what have we collected in tap fees? Where is that money and how much should go to the county? In the meantime, the proposal that they did send is sort of interesting because it's the other thing that last board meeting I asked for, which was for us to get quotes on doing a water rate study. And I know Bob Skull was gonna
mhm,
talk to infrastructure alternatives on that, so.
yep,
So we don't have to do anything with this.
okay, beautiful. I was gonna,
Just give you an update of
Okay.
how that kind of
great.
came about.
Well, thank you.
well, I think it'll be great to have this quote because when infrastructure alternatives comes back with something, then we'll have a sense of, the
Right,
differences
right.
between the two.
Well, and I want to send around too, we just had a rate study done, the board funded the rate study in 2001. And so that's not that long ago. We,
2001.
I'm sorry, 2021. It was a long
We
time
didn't have
ago,
it in
2001.
2001.
Yeah, no, I wasn't even living in Sylvan at the time. But we had a rate study done in 2021. And so we can, we can look at that. I'm not sure how much has changed. I know when they gave us that results from the rate study, we weren't able to charge the rates that were needed because they're exorbitant. And so, I mean, I don't know if much has changed. I'm in favor of finding solutions and finding things and ways that we can, make the water department
Well,
better and leaner, definitely.
The the rate study, if you look at the infrastructure alternative study in the very back, they have a 5-year plan, a prediction of, so it's a model, it's an Excel
Mhm.
spreadsheet. And it says based on escalation, this and
Right.
this, and it's got a line item for capital improvement projects. And what we really should be doing is taking that model, developing it to then figure out not what to charge somebody for water, but to figure out how much is the general fund subsidizing
Well, that's.
the water
easy.
department.
That's easy to know because it's a chunk that goes over there. You know, there's
Specifically for the water.
yeah,
to
because it's
cover
water,
the-
because it comes out of the general fund and goes to the water fund.
It gets,
Because the water fund, right, because like Ms. Egler was saying, there's different funds for different things. So, you know, when the water fund is when there's no more water money in the water fund to do the things they need to do, that money comes from the general fund.
Mhm.
So that's a transfer. So that
So-
number should be easy to.
Right, so
Okay.
now, when you go to sell water to somebody, you
Mhm.
make sure you're not including the general fund subsidy
Right,
to bring the dollars per gallon down to then sell water at a loss for
Right.
more general fund subsidy. So
right.
that's why you need a model. And it's, in the capital, improvement line item is critical in that.
Mhm.
Scott has pointed out,
Yeah,
the water tower, all that should be developed and laid out over a 10-year period.
yes.
And so, when the infrastructure alternatives model was done, it had a certain number of customers. That's changed drastically, I would hope.
We gave them information about what was coming, so
And-
I don't know, we.
A lot of the data that they had was based on 2017 numbers. So now you're talking 7 years ago.
Mm,
It's
Mhm,
that model that's
mhm.
more
right,
critical.
Right,
So anyway, that was the discussion at the last board meeting. The reason I'm bringing this one is to, how do we want to figure out how much we've collected in tap fees? What's the process for that? We want a consultant to do it, or are we gonna do it ourselves? Is it gonna be a work session?
been received.
What's that?
They've been cash receipted.
But-
Step
Yeah,
fees
I'm not
come in.
sure
But
what
is there,
that,
yeah, does that mean though that you could come up with a report that said, we've collected this amount from this development, this amount from this development, this amount from this development, so we have a total number?
I can give a total number, I'm sure. I don't know if I could break them down by development.
A total
So
number?
what-
but a total number that should be going towards the
tap
bond
fund.
payment,
Yeah, excuse
right,
me, the
right,
bond, right,
exactly.
Right.
Right, and I'm in favor of that, and I think if we can do it in-house, and we don't have to pay somebody, that's awesome.
right, so how do we do it in-house? We say, Rod, by next week, get us this number, or do we sit down in a work session?
Well, I
go
mean, it
through it?
sounds like I have nothing to input to that. Rod's gonna have to come up with that, so
Yeah.
we could all sit together, but it's not gonna help Rod bring that information
But
forward.
do you need any
So-
resources
Nope.
for that?
And I reached out to the county, and this speaks to a little bit about, us making that $1 million tap fees that come in, coordinating with Rod, we're gonna apply that. When we refunded, what was it, 2 years ago, there was 4 million left. So whatever we paid last year, we pay $1 million on it. Then whatever's in this winter taxes, we are very close.
Yeah.
So I'll just say that.
Right.
Right.
Um,
So yeah, if Rod, if you could give us that information, do you want it for the next
by the
board
next board
meeting?
meeting?
Yeah, for the next board meeting? I mean, it
So-
should be pretty easy.
So the $1 million though that you are coordinating to pay the county is to pay off the advance?
Well, I think the county is gonna dictate a little bit how it gets applied.
Because I thought if we,
because
if
I-
you can't pay it
Well,
off
it-
early, then
Well, and that's
The-
the,
The bond
The
can't
bond
be
is
paid
when-
off early, but what we're trying to do is to stop the 4.4 mils. And
right,
at that point, the township will continue to write checks to the county to cover the
right,
payment
if
for
we
the
have enough
bond.
money, yes, if we have
Right,
enough
right,
money earmarked
right.
in a fund for.
and
those
the other
payments.
thing is, it's the county's bond, right? So the
Right.
county can't pay it off early. Can we pay the county and then the county just keeps that money and puts it in there?
Well,
Well, there's no
And
reason.
once our obligation is done, then we lift the 4.4. So
But
if
we
we
have-
can.
but we have to pay the county and then the additional interest we would have
Of course,
accrued. the
right,
total
because
amount,
we
right?
owe 4 million and then it's $1 million, right? That's
The
the.
key is stopping the 4.4 mils.
Exactly.
At that point, the township will have to continue to write checks to the county until the bond is paid off.
Right.
So that's where we want to be.
Right, 100%.
And
And we're
that's why we
very, I
need
think,
that
very-
number.
Right, and I think it sounds like Rod can provide that to us. If he has problems and isn't able to, then maybe we'll need to escalate and hire someone.
So the tap fees aren't gonna cover, I don't believe, what we owe the county.
No.
So
No.
let's say if.
No.
So now we're talking about taking settlement funds to make up that difference that,
Possibly, but I think we have new developments coming on. Westchester, by the way, I was gonna mention later, wants to have a meeting with us as they're rolling out. Jack Knowles just got, his sewer permit was approved for his 81 apartment complex.
And I believe
And
he
so-
paid, was it $600,000 in tap fees? I know that was,
Well, and so I can't remember if
None.
he paid. I don't think Jack.
The only big
did.
chunk in tap fees we had was Sylvan
Was
Crossing.
Sylvan Crossing.
I swear I remember him and I was very new on the board saying, I just paid you 500 and something $1,000 for those tap fees. I'll go back. and
Well,
look.
and we can look and,
Yeah, we-
and you will have a record.
Yeah, you
Bob
have a
has
record,
We'll
sure.
have a record and we'll know, but I think we are gonna be getting some more.
Yeah.
And I think because our amount is getting so little, I think we're really close. The thing that went out, in 2012 was a 20-year bond, so it's supposed to go through 2032. So we're way ahead of the curve. We've got 4 left of the million, in the advance, although that goes up and down, right? Recall the spreadsheet, and we're meeting with Mr. Sweeney and Tina Gavalier from the county. Those numbers are all over.
When it was refunded through 26 or 8 though.
Right, because there's only 4 years left on it. There was 4 million and we're raising 1 million a year. So,
But
but
I-
I guess originally I'm just saying that the township has done well through the years with this because we are much.
So I
calculate stuff.
sense maybe the next action item is for you to bring us those total tap fees
Mm-hmm.
and then start to think about a work session where we can sit down and really delve into this and hammer out different trajectories.
so in the discussions with costs arising, he recommended you go back 5 years. Don't try to go back 10.
Further than that.
There's diminishing returns by trying to go look that far back. I don't know if that,
Yeah. And I mean,
means
those-
anything
those
to-
tap fees paid for a lot of sewer repairs too, because we didn't know. Way back then, we didn't know.
Hmm.
So any of those tap fees went to the sewer.
Well, and if there
I
were
mean-
sewer tap fees, then they should have, yeah, but yeah.
Wow.
And we probably get more of those
Yeah,
than
we-
water
yeah.
tap fees because we have more sewer users than. But yes, I like that.
But
I mean, I like the
but if
approach.
we find out then that, and we should be able to determine how many of those tap fees were used for repairs. And if we have to make a decision, then do we pull more money out of the settlement money then? I mean, I think we should try to make that up.
Right,
We should try, if we have settlement money and we say, oh, it was $500,000 we used for sewer repairs, definitely we should reallocate that money to go towards the bond. Because, yeah, it's not
Well-
ethical to say, well, we did it wrong in the past. We used the money to pay for the sewer, but we're gonna still keep collecting from the people.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So I mean, just bring the data to the table and make sure that we
Right.
have the facts we need to make decisions.
And I think
Good on
5 years is probably gonna be a pretty good net there
Yeah.
because, before that, I'm not sure.
Over 90%.
Exactly. I think it'll do a really good job.
Yeah,
So I like
totally.
5 years.
Okay.
All right, so
Good.
that's doable. You'll bring that
Yep.
next?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Then do we want to table this item then for now and keep it in there or just remove
I'm
it?
gonna wait to see a quote from Costs Arising and then I'll submit that next board meeting and say,
Great thing.
here's what Rod saved us.
So this item,
And
we're
then,
not,
right, and then we do have a
But what do,
quote for doing the water rate study. So if we need that, if Infrastructure Alternatives says they don't wanna do
Right.
whatever, we still have that in our back pocket.
right, I like it. But this proposal right now, we're not moving any action on this tonight, right, Kurt? Okay. All right.
I don't think.
A couple things actually. Wait, oh no, you're right.
Just one. Mhm.
Just one, the admin
Yep.
security cameras.
So we just, there was some discussion on this policy. And we were able to come up with changing it just a little. So we're gonna propose changing language. It would be 4.41. It's changed to township officials will have access to view camera footage via unique user IDs and passwords, which I confirm with the company that's installing it, that's very easy to do. And then if we do that, then we would strike from what is now 4.4 goodness, am I marked?
4.6.
Thank you, my marked up copies had to read. We'll strike manage user, IT vendor under authorization will manage user access. We're just gonna strike manage user access. So you have a clear copy and then that marked up copy as well.
Yep.
So it's just a small change to the verbiage, but it would just allow just some flexibility in what we can do in the office. So each official would have a unique user ID and password to access the system. So
Is
Rod,
that
I'm
issued
going
by
to call on
the-
Rod during my election to monitor the parking lot for me.
And so that would
Because
be.
that would
given
be,
by,
that
like-
would be very valuable.
How
Well,
would
the
the-
way
how-
this works is that that any one of us
Uh-huh.
can view the camera footage,
Right.
but then we'd follow the policy. If we wanted an actual copy of it, we would go through this policy where we would.
Who issues the unique names? So you said that it's.
It'll be the company that's installing the
Okay,
cameras. Yep.
Beautiful, okay.
And then if
Yep.
you want a copy of it, then we will actually, VC3 is coming up with a form for us to fill out. We would fill out the form. It will go to you as a supervisor, Kathy.
And
Then you
I
just send it
issue-
on.
Right, send it to them.
And then
Right,
they
there's no point of
actually,
contact.
there's a folder that they'll create on the server. And then we just stick a thumb drive in and we can get that footage.
And VC3 does updates for it.
Yep, they're
We
gonna do
don't
the
have to do
update. You
anything.
really want them to manage that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to do it, so.
All right, so I would like a motion to approve amended policy ADM 165 to add a new section 4.41 outlining township officials' access to camera footage revised and effective January 9th, 2024.
I'll second.
All right, motion from Amanda, supported by Rod. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Thank you, motion carries. All right, that is the end of the business part of the agenda, and we're back around to public comment, second public comment. Is there anyone? Yes. You need to start serving coffee, I think, or something.
Well, we're nowhere near a record. It's only 9 o'clock.
Yeah, that's.
I want to congratulate the board for coming to an agreement about the security cameras, first of all. I would also like to respond to Ms. Egler's comments about the different funds in the township and what funds may be available or not. I think this was already discussed a little bit by the board a few minutes ago. But the fact is that between the tap fees that are required legally to go to the bond and the malpractice money, which certainly is related to water and sewer, certainly could be used by the bond, that's enough to cover our remaining debt obligations by itself. So it's not really necessary to go in and look at all the township's funds and see how they might be encumbered. Although that was a valid point. It just speaks to what you guys were talking about, though, that we do need to put some numbers on the table so that everybody knows these numbers. You know, how much is in that malpractice fund? How much tap fees do we have? At least approximately. I think if we overshoot on the tap fees, at least we're legally protected. But if we undershoot on the tap fees, and if we don't cancel the 4.4, then we may reach a situation where the remaining debt obligation is in total smaller than the tap fees that we have to apply to it. And that would put us in legal jeopardy. We don't want to get so close that the tap fees would actually put us over, right?
I think get worried about it.
No, it's not going to happen in the next year, but it could happen the year after if we don't do anything. So I'm glad that you're putting some numbers together. It shouldn't take too long, it sounds like, to get the essential numbers that we need, I think. I want to say something about the ethics policy too, because I don't think the language added to the ethics policy actually addresses any of the controversial conflict of interest situations that we've actually had. So we need to do some more work on this. I don't think it addresses the Steve Eisman issue with the Finney project. Because by the time he was voting on it, the real estate transaction was done. I don't think there's anything in there that speaks definitively to whether that's a conflict of interest. Others may disagree. I'm not a legal expert. I don't think it addresses the issue that was raised with Mr. Branham's brother-in-law, I think it was. It doesn't say what a close family member is. So it doesn't definitively answer that question, as Mr. Townsend said earlier, or something to that effect. I don't think it answers the issue with my own business relationship with Ms. Kennedy. I don't think it answers that question. Although I do understand that both Mr. Branham and Ms. Kennedy had asked the township attorney if either of those situations were conflicts of interest and got a response, no. So we need to define conflict of interest really, really sharply. Otherwise, we're still going to have these answers. I mean, these questions. I can see if it's defined too broadly, it can be weaponized against people, right? We just had a discussion about yard setbacks in adjoining properties on the lake. What if somebody says, well, Mr. Kosek here is a member of the Lake Association, so he can't talk about that. Well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say such a thing, but we have to know where the line is. Otherwise, somebody else is going to say something like that, right? Or Ms. Kennedy can't appoint Courtney Heller to the Planning Commission because Courtney Heller is a local farmer and might do business with Agricole someday. Again, I wouldn't say that, but you can imagine if somebody wants to weaponize this, what they can start doing. So we have to make it a lot clearer than it is, right? I think I had something else to say, but I don't remember it. Oh, I want to go back to my original comments very briefly. When I said it was an overdetermined decision, the three basic things you keep in mind, nothing that we discussed today alters the three basic considerations. One is financial, we have the money. Two is legal, we have to appropriate some of the money that we have for tap fees. And the third is ethical. Are we using the money in the way that it was voted on, with the intention that it was voted on at least? And money is fungible, by the way. Just because it goes into one account and comes out of the general fund, it's all, things can be moved around because there are different encumbrances. So it's not literally true that the 4.4 would go to pay for a capital improvement fund. What it does is it releases other money that we're sitting on that could be used for a capital improvement fund. So it kind of backstops a capital improvement fund. That's the best way I can explain it. But we know this, right? We're sitting on 7 million that could be used for it. Any other money that we take in offsets another expenditure. So I'm sorry, I probably went over again, but thank you very much.
Any other public comments? Yes.
Just following up on the conflict of interest, I want to commend the board for voting that new language into effect. I agree with Patrick. It's a work in progress. You're never going to have a perfect policy that covers everything. So you lay out a policy that is as explicit as possible, which is why I said, hey, this is a good first step. Now take family members and just lay out what you think is a reasonable description of what are family members. And I propose that it's father, mother, sister, brother, and their spouses. That's like a first ring of family members. And then I would encourage you to define what partner is, because just in reading it, you could say, is that policy talking about a domestic partner? Is it talking about a business partner? Just specify that. But yeah, and then another issue you might want to think about is how do you enact that policy? So you have a policy sitting there. How do you make it come to life and actually do what it's supposed to do? To Patrick's point, in healthcare, when there's a potential conflict of interest, you're asked to state it right up front. Be very proactive. This is my potential conflict of interest. Let's develop a conflict of interest management plan for this particular case. So in that situation, the conflict of interest management plan might be, I will recuse myself from all votes, but I'm going to be involved in the discussions, or I will recuse myself from votes and recuse myself from all discussions. So you just think about everything very proactively, and you document what the management plan is, so that when it comes up in front of the community, which is what you're trying to manage. I said this before, you're managing the perceptions of the community. In a vacuum, everybody who is perceiving things is going to assume what they're going to assume, and oftentimes it's the worst. So manage it in advance, be very transparent, and a lot of times it comes down to do the right thing and use common sense. So, but thank you for voting the new language.
Anybody else? Public comment? And then-
I never get the last word at home, so. I gotta get it here. But, yeah, so conflict of interest, right? So my, the history of Steve Eisman, right? He was getting money for what he did. That's wrong. And I mean, that's, I don't even know what the word is, right? It's illegal, right? Unethical, wrong in a whole lot of ways, right? So what I don't understand was, and what we don't have in any emails is, what was Carol's game? And not that it matters a ton, she's gone, but however, it happened under this umbrella, right? Carol was like working that deal harder than anybody. And what was in it for her? I don't know. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know. Right? But it just seems super strange. Like she was working overtime, scheduling meetings like it was nobody's business to get this thing done. So whatever the policy is, it needs to be enforced. It needs to be posted on the wall about what needs to be done. And if someone finds out about it, the process for even suspecting it. I mean, if people can't police themselves, then it's up to everyone else on the board to like go, I think something's not cool. And maybe they don't think it is, but maybe that's a discussion that happens, you know, with council or amongst you all. Is just, yeah, that sounds like that could cause trouble in the future. So why don't we talk about it out in the open and go, yeah, it is, or no, it's not. And make that decision known. That's all. Just if we can get a little more meat on the bones to talk about all that stuff, that'd be great. And you know, thanks. I don't usually stick around to the end, so thanks for you guys. Just everything gets blurry around 8:30, so hats
Get
off.
up and have a stretch, a seventh inning stretch. I think. Sandy's coming up for public comment.
Real quick. I commend you for wanting to do the water sewer rate studies. I'm going to offer you an alternative. I actually did those for 25 years. Back 15, 20 years ago, when there was the lawsuit in the state of Michigan, Bolt versus, it was either Lansing or East Lansing, set how these things must be done and how you set your rate structures. Michigan Rural Water Association developed a spreadsheet rate calculating program. It has everything in it. You put in all your budget, you put in your consumption sales, you put in all your different types of revenue, you to put in all your capital needs, including, you know, is this a 1 year, a 5 year, a 10 year? You put all of this in there and it spits the rates out. And one of the organizations that I worked with a few years back, they hired a company to come in and give an independent rate study. Their rate that they returned came within 2 cents per thousand of the Michigan Rural Water rate calculator. It's free for you today if you want it.
We just joined them.
Just let me know and I can shoot you the email and the program's yours and play with it to your little heart's content. I'll send it to Amanda tomorrow.
It'd be wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I think we just joined that Michigan Rural Water. Yeah, specifically maybe for that reason. Any other public comment? All right, Board of Trustee comments?
I have some, I did have a question. Did we, maybe this was something, did we follow up on the reimbursement for the trooper door? And how was that going to be?
I
I
sent
left
the,
a message.
Okay. All
because
right.
I.
And I haven't
sent
heard
it
back.
through
I
email.
will call
State
again.
police, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also just wanted to follow up on election stuff. Let me get back to here. So we mailed out 528 absent voter ballot applications and we mailed out 638 ballot selection forms. So that means we have 638 residents on our permanent ballot list now. We've received 384 ballot selection forms back and the absent voter applications. With the passage of Proposal 2, we have quite a bit of work on our hands. Because the permanent ballot list requires, so we sent these out and by January 18th, we send out a ballot selection form, which means you have to tell me if you want to vote in the Republican or Democrat presidential primary. If you don't send that back to me by January 18th, I have to reach out to every one of those voters by text, email, phone, or the United Postal Service to, in every way possible, to ask you what selection form you want. So that is going to put quite a lot of work on the clerk's office. Because that now is a lot of time, because every single one of those residents we have to do everything we can, and we'll have to have a log of what we've done if we're audited to show that we've done that. So,
Hopefully the form is clear, because it does say at the top, which ballot would you like? But I know people miss them all the
Yeah.
time.
yeah, but they get them in the mail and they don't return them because they think they have more time, or it just gets lost under a stack. One other thing I wanted to say is, I put this in, included this in correspondence. We did receive an email from a resident who was asking to use the boardroom, I'm trying to find it, the boardroom for, the road association meeting. So I feel like we had that resident. We also have had Patrick request that we use the boardroom for public forums. I understand there are some legal things for us to consider, but what I would like to do is, after the election, really start to, contact MTA. I've contacted them once already, but start to maybe come up with some draft language. I, as a board member, feel, and I do believe it sounds like we would have to have a board member present for the meetings. While
must.
I'm here, I feel like that's my job. I would want to accommodate those within the constraints of a policy that we would agree on, so that we can, and it has to make sense to us, but we can allow residents to come in and we would allow them to use this room for a road association. We're just here to listen. We're just here to open up the building and provide the ability to use the room. So personally, I would be willing to do that for, and it has to work within our schedules and around what we're doing here.
Right.
But, I just wanted to make that comment that I want to try and figure that out, to find some kind of compromise that makes sense to us, so that we can, this is the people's house.
Yeah.
And I want to figure out how we best service the residents. And that feels, here we got another request from someone else. And
Yeah.
so just wanted to let you know, I think that's important, and I'll work on it.
Perfect. And I know I know other townships have, we have a policy against no rental of our building, no other things than the government. But I know other places have that. They allow other groups, my 4-H club, when my kids are neighborhood, it's impossible to find public space where you can go. The schools won't let you be there. They wouldn't even let us sit on the grass. They're like, this is school property. And there's only so many times you can go to the library. And this room is empty. And like you said, it would be a great place. Well, in that too. But it's difficult because of our constraints.
Sure.
But I'd be willing to, I think we
Yeah.
all feel good about,
Yeah,
making this available
Trying to look at
as
what
much
else
as
is
we
out there.
can.
Yeah. Okay,
So.
thank you.
Wonderful. And I just want to mention, I didn't do a WAVE report because we didn't have a meeting in December, but WAVE right now has been looking at their information and hearing about free public transportation. And so for the month of February, WAVE is going to have no fees. You can ride the bus for free the entire month of February. Because what they're trying to see is, they found, the executive director said, I think it was only like $30,000 came from fees that people paid. And in the big picture of their budget, that was minuscule. She said, I feel like I could find grant money to make that up. And how fantastic would it be to relieve everybody of that obligation, the riders, the bus drivers, everybody.
Wow.
You know, the senior center does passes and gives them out, like, no need for that anymore. So I'm here to encourage that. I haven't been on the wave bus myself. I want to do it. It's free for February, so tell your friends. They're going to try to promote it.
Red
But
Cross.
that's awesome. Yes, yes. So I'm sure they're going to be out pushing that, but I wanted to let you know.
They go down my road.
Yeah, they
The
go
bus
about
bus
it.
goes down my road
Yeah.
frequently. Like,
And the other thing is, so budget talk, we've been talking a lot about budgets. Ideally, we're gonna have it to the people in February for a public hearing, and then we can pass it in March. So we're ready to go April 1st. That's the ideal. It seems like we're always squeezing in special meetings here and there. We're gonna need to have one in
That's good.
January.
I
I'm
agree.
collecting information from department heads for their budgets, and then I'll just bring it to you and we'll make
Okay.
decisions about salaries, I would imagine, and any increases, and then, you know, look at that together.
Okay.
But we're gonna want to do that in January if possible. And also Rob Fall is telling me Alan Green from Westchester would like to have another special meeting to come and maybe do a presentation of where they are and what they want and all of those things.
Perfect.
Okay. Anything else?
I have
move,
nothing.
move to adjourn.
What time, Rod? What time, Rod?
At
21?
9:23,
9:23?
Oh, this one says 9:21.
9:21.
Oh, that's.
Oh, yeah, 9:21. I was thinking over there.
Supports.
That was battery operated. That was not.
Motion from Rod, supported by Kurt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you. You had a rough.
You need to collapse.
I know.
All right, so everybody. So call us in a week when you wake up. I hope I see.